Hey kids, Dane with Crypto the Wonder Dog. So I just had a talk with Charlie. You're going to watch that here in a few seconds. And I'm still having issues with this stupid microphone, the recording software that I got. We had an issue with FaceTime. We're using that to talk today. You might got any suggestions, man? I'm starting to go crazy here. This new OBS software and the upgrade to the new Mac software is driving me insane because it sounds good to me right now, but I'm sure it's blowing out somewhere, and I don't know if it's the microphone, I don't know if it's my mixer, I don't know if it's the computer. Very frustrating because I'm a visual guy. I work with pictures and video, and sound is not been my strong point, so kind of stupid for somebody who's trying to do a podcast, right? So we did a show on the manipulation of Wall Street with the Bitcoin, and there was some stuff with Jamie Dimon and other people from JPMorgan to Goldman Sachs that they were poo-pooing the idea about Bitcoin, but they knew what they were doing because they knew that they had a big enough voice in the world and enough dumb people out there would listen to them and would drive the price down with crypto and Bitcoin and the other coins. And it came across a video from a guy, and we're using part of the video that he found. So it's like three videos, like a turducken of a video, if you will, a turducken. So we're the turkey, and he's the duck, and then we've got the chicken, which is the video that has Glenn Beck in it, and another cat that is talking about, and it's showing on a chalkboard, and they've done their homework called The Great Crypto Conspiracy. And we'll be watching that. I had a physical today with the VA, and they're turning their program around there. They talk about guys with the whole backlash that they got from guys dying in the waiting room. So now they're very nice to you when you walk in. They're very polite. They call you up and get you in and get you out. The facility in Orange County here is kind of a new one, and that's where I had mine. And they asked me if I wanted to do a colonoscopy, and it didn't take me long to say no, I don't want to, but I'm sure I'm going to have to here pretty soon. So it's at that time, it's that age, and I'm not looking forward to it. So anyway, enough about my problems. Here's the show with myself and Charlie, and you guys ready to start the show? All right, let's start the show.
I can see you, unfortunately.
I just got back from the doctor. I went to a physical, and they asked me if I wanted to do a colonoscopy. I said no. They said, okay, we'll take this little sample home and then mail it back to us. So I'm almost considering doing a joke on them and taking some from our dog and mailing it in and see what I get back.
Oh man, can I tell you my story about a colonoscopy?
Yes, please.
The very first one I ever took, I went to a teaching hospital to get it. And I didn't, at the time, I was pretty young, I didn't know what a teaching hospital was or
so wasn't. So they're teaching people how to do colonoscopies?
Teaching them how to be doctors.
Okay.
And so, so I booked this appointment, I go in, the doctor's giving me this colonoscopy, they're, shoving this here and there. And all of a sudden, this group of students walks into the room.
Right on.
There's like, 15 of them.
Yeah.
And they're observing. And they're all saying, well, would you like to take a look at this? And they said, oh, yeah, sure. So they're all taking a peek up inside my intestines, inside my colon. I mean, I don't know. And they're saying,
so you became a ride at Disneyland.
Yeah, apparently. And I said, what the? you know, and I didn't, I wanted to be, you know, polite, but I had no idea what, you know, who these people were taking turns. And I found out later that's what, you know, teaching hospitals do. So I learned the hard way about the colonoscopy thing. So.
Yeah. See, I would do that with a haircut where they're teaching kids how to give a haircut, but I don't know if I would do that with the colonoscopy.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it either.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know, it's been a rocky world in the world of crypto, man. Where are we looking at today? I know that I was just on Coinbase earlier, and it was like 3,900.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, Bitcoin was about 3,900 right now. Can't get it to come. Okay, there we go. Yeah, 38.97. So it's not doing great. It's where you want it to be if you're looking to buy. I'll tell you that, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
And we've had some issues, and I came across this video, and you and I had already talked about some stuff about this before. So
yeah.
I like the way that you put it better than the way that I put it. So why don't you go ahead and give us an overview of what this video is, and then we'll let the kids see this.
Okay. What happened? You're talking about the Glenn Beck interview that you sent me a couple of days ago. Okay.
Yeah.
What happened was Glenn Beck was interviewing a fellow, and he was talking about the manipulation that was taking place and he pretty much outright said it was manipulation that was taking place specifically with Bitcoin. What was happening was that some of the most important characters or spokespeople or you know, leading lights in the financial markets were talking one way or the other about Bitcoin. They were doing what was called jawboning. They weren't doing anything specifically other than saying this is going to be good, this was going to be bad, I don't foresee things going this, whatever they may be saying. And the minute they said that, this gentleman that was being interviewed by Glenn Beck said, wait a minute, if you notice a few days later, it did exact opposite of what they claimed what was happening. So therefore, it was apparent that they were, because of their position and their authority, they were able to get some sort of a lot more media attention than you and I could possibly ever get. Yeah. And so because of that authority, they were able to go on and say whatever they had to say in order to be able to get a manipulated price that they benefited from. And that's what he was talking about.
And these are all guys from JPMorgan,
Goldman
Sachs, and Jamie Dimon. He was the one that told his employees, "I'll fire anyone that advises their clients to buy Bitcoin." Right?
Correct.
Yeah. And then what does he do? What does he do a few weeks later?
He goes and buys Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just him. The whole point is what we talked about back in February, last February. We did a show called Decentralization, and I suggest anybody going to see it. I'm hoping Dean will do a couple of references from that show.
I'll put the link in the show, yeah.
Yeah, you have to see it because as far back as then, we were talking about the whole notion of decentralization. Now, decentralization was essential because it's basically saying that there's not going to be any one person or one institution that has control of this market. It's going to be something between peer-to-peer and that ordinary people like us, could invest in without the need to have anybody else involving themselves in this thing.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about how Bitcoin was put on a futures market. And the minute you put something on a futures market, that's it. The futures market was created to overwhelm price discovery. So it was ripe for manipulation. And we warned people about the possibility of this happening. So what happens? Glenn Beck comes along, interviews this fellow who points out just exactly what we were talking about, whatever it was, several months ago.
Yeah, you want to watch it real quick?
Yeah, let's watch it.
This has really been extremely egregious. So on September 12th, Jamie Dimon says Bitcoin is a fraud. He says he'll fire any one of his traders buying Bitcoin. Bitcoin drops 24%. When Jamie Dimon speaks, people listen. So that weekend, we found out that the largest buyer of a Bitcoin fund that's in Europe that buys physical Bitcoin, right? The largest buyer was Morgan Stanley and JPMorgan. And that's not illegal.
He says it's a fraud.
It says he'd fire anyone that buys it.
Fire.
Yes.
And at the same time, his company is buying it.
His company is buying it.
It's just, I mean, so unethical.
Right.
Okay, George Soros.
George Soros, in January 24th, price was already down, calls Bitcoin a bubble, says Bitcoin is the worst, the worst investment in the world. Don't buy Bitcoin. Don't buy Bitcoin. Basically throws gasoline on the fire at this point. And then what do we find out? So he says bubble here.
It drops 44%.
Right. And then here in April, 2 months later, guess what we find out?
Yeah.
His $26 billion family office has approval to buy cryptocurrency.
Right. And we only knew about it publicly here. And this is the kind of thing that George Soros is famous for this, talking the sterling down.
Yeah.
And what did he do? He stole the pensions of all the little people.
Yeah, made $1 billion.
Yeah. Okay.
So then here now, Goldman Sachs, this, again, February 7th, most cryptocurrencies will crash to zero. Now, I remember when they said this in February, and I had, through my network, I knew that Goldman Sachs was setting up a crypto trading desk. Absolutely knew they were setting up a crypto trading desk. And
I remember you telling me that.
Right. And then, of course, they were denying it. No, we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not. Price falls down 27%. And then what do we find out? We find out here, they say BTC 0. And then we find out just before May, new trading desk. Not only that, they put $400 million to buy a cryptocurrency trading platform. Okay, so February 7th, it's all going to zero. May, we just spent $400 million just on a flyer.
And they're not the only ones.
No. So you have a lot of institutions that are coming. You had Christine Lagarde from the IMF come out. And this was, what's funny about this, Glenn, is it was all around the same time. It was almost like I can't prove collusion, but, it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck.
And you know what?
It's probably a duck.
The people, they all hang out together, they all think alike. It doesn't have to be calling each other.
Yeah.
They know this game.
Yes. So IMF, Christine Lagarde says in the first part of the year, says all central banks should band together against cryptocurrency.
Right.
Have you ever heard her say all banks should band together against illegal arms?
No.
Or illegal drugs?
No.
Or human trafficking?
No.
No. But this nascent asset class, we must all join arms against.
What this did was play into people's heads that these guys are never going to let Bitcoin survive.
Right.
And so people thought, this is over.
Selling. Yeah.
So
Well, the thing that's important to know is that two guys who basically don't have any of the resources that some of these big networks have are capable of being able to understand and talk about the type of manipulation that's going on and warn people about the sort of thing that this gentleman that was being interviewed by Glenn Beck warned about.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. Our show is decentralized. This is just two guys talking about a particular topic like cryptocurrencies and blockchain and other things and the overall market that's involved with that. We don't behold to anybody. We're not beholden to anybody. We're just speaking our minds, and we're capable of basically doing the analysis that should have been done a long time ago when we were talking about this stuff, and it hasn't been done. And I'm glad you brought me on so that we could kind of follow up on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I could put this in. I don't know how that guy did it. Made it look so clean, but I should have tried a little harder. But I'll put the link into this video, and it's from a cat named what was his name? Sunny Decree, and I found him online. But it was interesting because I like Glenn Beck. And it was funny because I didn't know that Glenn Beck even cared about Bitcoin or whatever. So it's very very interesting to see their take on it.
Yeah. Well, it's the same kind of take we had, but we did a much more broader macro analysis where we're saying, look, all of these markets are manipulated. And, we're warning about the futures market. And the same thing happens with the stock and bond market. They're manipulated in this kind of way as well. So it seems as if Bitcoin has been compromised to the point that it cannot be what it claims to be. It cannot be that.
Well, I don't think it's Bitcoin itself. I think it's the cats behind, the markets and stuff. Because Bitcoin will never be compromised. I think Bitcoin itself.
As soon as it's put on a futures market, it will be.
Well, the value. I don't think. The value.
Yeah, the value will.
Yeah.
That's why we distinguish the difference between cryptocurrency and blockchain. Blockchain, I think, has efficacy. Always has been. I think there's something to be said about the peer review or the peer-to-peer ledger creation facility that the cryptocurrency or that the blockchain creates. The cryptocurrencies, if they don't go the way of Bitcoin, if they're not being put on futures markets and they're not going to be capable of having this kind of manipulation, I don't know. Now, let me back up a little bit. In and of themselves, futures markets are not a bad thing. Futures markets are in many cases done as hedges. Your insurance companies will use a futures market. In order, farmers, a lot of big farmers use the futures market to hedge their investments in their, when they go out and they plant something.
Yeah.
In case something goes wrong, they'll have an investment in a futures market, in a futures instrument that kind of hedges their risk. So in of themselves are not. There's nothing criminal. And I'm not trying to say that anything was criminally done right now, but they're also capable of being manipulated.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening, for instance, with the precious metals markets. With gold, silver, and the platinum being the major precious metals.
Yeah, I think Bo had something to say about that.
What?
I think Bo had something to say about that.
Yeah. Bo Polling, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. He talks about that quite a bit. And I appreciate you bringing Bo. I know a lot of people have problems with him. I'm not a technical analyst. He is. He's an expert technical analyst. And, he talks about that kind of futures manipulation as well. But that's been going on for quite some time. And there you go. You have maybe the mainstream media. Glenn Beck is pretty mainstream, coming along and verifying what you and I said nearly a year ago.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Speaking of pretty cool, you look pretty cool yourself. You look little I think it's a little cold up there.
Yeah.
Is that snow?
It's the Northwest, baby.
Did you have snow yet?
Yeah, this ain't Orange County, man. It ain't Orange County where you can go to the beach and on Christmas. Here it's where we don't do that.
Do you have snow up there right now?
Say again?
Do you have snow up there right now?
Nah, no snow.
No snow.
It'll get down to about 20 tonight.
Wow. Holy cow, man. I could see from the mountains. You can see Big Bear from here. Or not Big Bear. What's that one? San Gabriel. What's that?
Baldy?
Yeah.
Baldy?
No, the one, the big one. Is that Mount Baldy? Where Mountain High is?
Yeah.
Or
I think it's Mount Baldy. Yeah.
Yeah. There was snow on the cap of that this morning.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
You could see that out there.
I remember Mount Baldy.
Yeah. So,
sure.
Mm-hmm. The Mexicans not a big fan of the snow, are they? But there you are in the upper Northwest. There you are.
I wouldn't know because I'm an American, so you'll have to ask a Mexican whenever you can find one. What the hell kind of question is
that? Well, the New Mexicans, I'm from New Mexico, and I grew up in the snow. I grew up...
New Mexico, didn't you?
Yeah, I grew up in Silver City, New Mexico, where all the snow, we get all 4 seasons. That's one of the billboards going into Silver City there. Get all 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, all 4 seasons.
So I should be asking you how the hell it is.
Yeah.
You wasp. You waspy little bastard.
Yeah, I did grow up just outside of Palomas and what's the other border town there in New Mexico? Not Juarez, but a town close to that. Palomas. What was the other one? I don't know. Old Mexico, whatever it was. Anyway, so what's going on with you? What's next on your plate?
Well, what's next on my plate is trying to figure out where this market's going to go. I mean, I don't know if you've been following the stock market, the Dow specifically, but the Dow fell something like, 2,000 points the last couple of months. Now it's rebounding right straight back.
Is it?
And yeah. And the thing is, take a look at something. General Motors and GE are basically taking it in the shorts. They're just they're
didn't Cadillac just Cadillac just closed down a bunch of their cars. GM closed a plant, right?
Yep.
15,000 employees.
But you got to remember something. When you and I were growing up, General Electric was the backbone of the United States. I mean, I remember growing up with GE commercials, and you almost had it was almost synonymous with American capitalism. Take a look at what's going on with General Electric. It's almost impossible to believe. Yeah. But what I'm trying to get at is this hollowing out of the market, and how in the world does the Dow maintain its value when the companies or the corporations that are supposed to be backing, or that the Dow is supposed to be tracking, are in such terrible condition, economic condition? Now, not all of them, of course, because the Dow tracks 30 stocks. But you're talking about two bellwether corporations of American capitalism, General Electric and General Motors, being in such terrible economic situations. I don't know how the Dow measures anything. I don't know how it's capable of being used as a legitimate barometer of economic activity. And and I guess I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about our show, how we can present this in a more, mundane and in a way that people can understand it. Because quite frankly, we talked about one of our earlier shows about fear.
Yeah.
I'm really scared, Dean. I'm really scared about the economy. I got a son. I'm worried about his economic future. I don't know where things are going anymore.
Yeah, I know. Cause I got my daughter, and I got to worry about what she is doing, but as Bo was putting it, we're looking at a collapse of this part of finance, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So he's expecting this, and he said, don't freak out, because better things are coming with digital currency. So.
Well, I'll have to wait and see, because that's currency, and I appreciate you bringing Bo on, because, like I said, he's a technical analyst, and I can't speak to it. I can't critique or support what he says necessarily, because I don't understand it. You and I are more fundamental analysts. Mm-hmm. We take a look at the macro pictures rather than just the dips and the curves in a stock price or in the market. But nevertheless, he's always been forthcoming. He's always been straight up and said, look, bad times are coming, and as you said, prepare for them.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that any currency is going to necessarily save us. This is going to have to be, if we are to believe and go to the extent that we think that it's going to go, it's going to be cataclysmic. You're talking about a major depression, which is going to affect all of the economy. And so we better get ready for this.
Whew. Well, holy cow, man. I guess I'm going to have to start my bean garden, and
well, the thing is, a lot of people who get involved with the cryptocurrencies are doing it precisely because of what you and I are talking about. They're saying, look, the dollar is we've talked about this before too on several of our shows, how the dollar is dying.
Well, that's what Bo said. I mean, that's exactly what he says. That the stock market's going to crash, the dollar's going to go to nothing, and then the digital currencies are going to be the thing that's going to save mankind almost.
I don't know about that. I mean, I respect Bo tremendously, but I'm not sure if any currency is going to be capable of saving us. We're going to have to rely on ourselves for that. I'm just, it may be a help. It may be a facilitator of a new economic system. But that isn't the system itself. That's just the currency. The dollar reflects the value. If we're staying with what's currently now, the dollar reflects sort of the efficacy of the U.S. economy. And if it's collapsing, it's because the economy is itself not doing well. It's collapsing along with it. We have to have a strong basis economic and financial, but mostly economic basis before we can start talking about currencies or any other alternative method of payment. We got to get strong with our economy, dude. We got to figure out how we're going to put, several hundred million or several million, tens of millions of people to work in this country and around the world. We're going to have to figure this out. And it's not going to just necessarily be based on a digital currency. Where are the resources going to come from? Where are any of the things that we need? Where's an educated, well-trained workforce going to come from? And it's not going to necessarily just be premised on thinking that a new way of paying for things is going to happen. We have to change the way we do things entirely. So that's where I'm at. I'm glad you brought me on and I could rant and rave. And this is one of the reasons I come out here, because I don't want my neighbors or my wife hearing this.
People hearing you rant and rave. Well, one of the things before we go, one of the things that I noticed is that here in Orange County, there's a lot of job openings. Now, the problem is most people can't afford to have that job because they can't afford to live if they take that job. There's plenty of jobs around here that I see. In fact, there's some people that I know that are having a hard time filling position at this office. The problem is that you can't live on what the average job pays around here, and that's the problem. Is that there's a lot of job openings here in Orange County, but you can't afford to live here. So they're going to live, where they can, where they work. They can work here, but they can't live here because it takes. It's ridiculous that a two-bedroom apartment is going to cost you $2,500 to live in. Now, if you're making $18 an hour,
no way.
You're not going to live there unless you got 3 other people living with you. And then if you've got kids, all the adults going to sleep in one room, the kids are going to sleep in another room just so they can afford to live. I mean, it's just, it's got to the point where it's housing is no longer shelter, it's an investment for rich people.
I remember somebody talking about a long time ago about that the United States has become a nation of a monthly minimum nation, that our debt, instead of having wage growth, real wage growth and jobs that create wages that are capable of purchasing homes, we substitute that with debt. So if we have good debt or good debt ratings and a loan that facilitates us being able to make our monthly minimum payments, we're good.
Wow.
Well, that's not good. That's not what's happening. We can't just keep using debt and credit to make up for the lost wages that we've suffered in the last 40 years. We have to start creating a real economy that creates real jobs to fulfill real needs for people.
Yeah.
And that's not going to necessarily come because we have Bitcoin or cryptocurrency or blockchain. That might facilitate this new economy, but something has to happen fundamentally to change the way things are done.
Yeah, it does. Yep. And I think that's probably one of the big things going to come out of the blockchain technology into this is somebody smart taking the reins and changing the economy.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. Man, we haven't talked in quite a while, so I'm really glad you called me and we were out a chance to talk.
Yeah, we got to get this thing going where we're doing this every week because, the kids deserve it. We owe it to them.
We do.
We do, yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to let you go now. But,
okay. I got to get to work.
to go before he goes to sleep, so...
Okay. Well, have fun up there. And, Merry Christmas and all. And
we'll do something before that.
Yeah, I hope so we do. Yeah, let's, I'll send you some stuff, so let's work on that.
All right, buddy.
Cool. All right, man.
Take care of yourself, will you?
All right, see you, bro.
Bye.